Hey everybody, this is Joe. We're talking about Marvel Multiverse, and we're talking about rank X villains today. Here we go. So first, sorry for being gone for a little bit there. Family stuff at end of summer. I'm going to try to be a little bit more consistent going forward with videos, so sorry about that. But today we're talking about rank X villains, what they are, and how to build them. So there's not a lot of information about these. The core rulebook talks briefly in the section for Game Masters about the idea of a rank X villain, something that's above and beyond what a player character or most characters that we would see in the game are or are able to achieve. And none of the main villain stat blocks that we regularly look at are rank X. So we don't have a lot of examples. The only exception is a brief discussion in Cataclysm of Kang. In Cataclysm of Kang, it talks about the final version of Kang that we see being a rank X villain, but it does not give us any stat block to use or any guidance on how to build them. If you have ran this game past rank 3, then you have experienced the need for rank X villains. I can tell you from personal experience, having run several campaigns, that the core rulebook is just wrong when it says that a group of some rank would find a villain of the next rank above them to be a reasonable challenge. In my experience, this is just not true. I have had several times rank 3 heroes, a party of rank 3 heroes, take down a rank 6 villain. And this can start to get a little ridiculous. If you take a look at the final combat in Cataclysm of Kang, it is a grouping of rank 6 villains, and you're just desperately hoping that this group is going to pose a reasonable challenge for this nearly godlike group of players. Once your players reach rank 3 or 4 especially, they are able to take on any mixture of incredibly high rank villains, and there aren't that many of them to begin with. In a round or 2 rounds, they will take down your Magneto, they will take down your Doctor Doom, and any group of minions you have around them. And this is something that could be very frustrating, because the only real guidance that we get on how to do high-level combat from the core rulebook is just have more monsters. I've spoken about this before. I don't love the idea of just having more monsters because it means more time in gameplay is spent with my roles rather than my players. I would rather have fewer but stronger villains. So today we're going to talk about building a rank X villain and what are some of the things you might put into this stat block. We're going to start with some of the more obvious things that you can do, and then we're going to build into perhaps areas of character building that are not part of regular character building inside of this game system. So depending on how much you want to stretch the boundaries of what a villain can be or how much of the big bad evil guy it is, you might use some or all of these ideas. The first and most obvious thing is hit points and focus points. Going above and beyond the regular ability scores and the ability score caps, and thus the hit points, makes perfect sense for your villains. Giving them the ability to have modifiers that are above a 9, making them have modifiers of 10 or 11 or even 12, is going to give them more hit points, more focus, and greater ability scores at the same time. So thinking about the ability to have not 6 ranks, but for your villains perhaps 9 ranks makes a lot of sense. And using the same hit points and the same ability scores is going to keep it in the same game system. And I think that that helps out a lot. Of course, this is going to mean the ability to have multipliers that go above 10. The highest multiplier for damage output that you can get as a normal rank whatever character is a 10. That's 4 from a damage multiplying set of powers, such as Mighty 1 through 4, plus 6 ranks. So they can come up to a 10. You can get past this by throwing a gargantuan-sized object, as I've done with a couple character builds, but that's an incredibly rare scenario. The next thing is going to be karma. Typically, villain stat blocks do not get karma. Take a look at the villain stat blocks in the core rulebook or in modules, and you will see that they typically do not have karma. Giving your big monsters karma that they can spend the same as players is going to give them some more flexibility and is going to make them scarier when you announce that they are making a resilience recovery check or spending a point of karma to give an edge for an attack or whatever. The next bit of advice is condition immunities. Giving your monsters, your rank X villains, condition immunities, I think makes sense under some monsters and some conditions or situations. The 4 that I would really pay attention to is giving them the immunity to paralysis, blindness, the stunned conditioned, and surprise. If you took away the ability for those 4 conditions to happen, you would automatically get an interesting set of villains that the easy shutdown abilities from your players no longer work on. Next is going to be lightning actions built in. The lightning actions power is so obviously the big ticket to high damage that it feels a little bit strange for a villain to not have it. Now, I don't love the idea of every villain being a speedster. I think that ruins a lot of flavor. But giving them multiple attacks is just going to make them scarier on the battlefield. So giving them all of the features of lightning actions without flavoring it as the actual power or the power set, just giving them the ability to go in the bonus round for initiative, for other fantastic successes, and giving them 2 actions per every round is just going to make them scarier and hit harder, and your heroes are going to have to really pay attention to them. So even if it wasn't the lightning actions power, I would still consider this. Next, let's take a play from a different game system and give our highest level villains legendary actions. Legendary actions are necessary for high level villains to be really scary threats on the battlefield. Your players are going to, at higher levels, have probably lightning actions, at least several of them. Many of them are going to have multiple reactions per turn. And so you're going to get a lot of action economy on the player's side versus very little action economy on your villain's side. So give them some legendary actions, and I would use a system that is relatively similar to what we see in something like D&D, and that is a number of actions or points that you can spend. The number of points that I would have would be equal to the number of player characters in the combat. So if I have a table of 5 players, I would have 5 actions. Here's how these could break down. A legendary action can only be used at the end of another creature's turn, just like in D&D. It can be used to move. It can be used for an individual point to do an attack that does not require focus. It could be used for a resilience check, spending karma, if we give them karma to spend, to heal, or for maybe 2 or 3 points, depending on what you think is fair for your table, the ability to use a power that does cost focus. So in other words, they can't do a power that costs focus after every creature's turn, but they can do it from time to time. Doing so is going to give them a lot of action economy. And now, no matter what, your villain's action economy will be equal to your player's action economy. And that is without taking your reaction abilities into consideration. Doing these things will have a character that hits harder and hits more often. And that's what a boss fight should feel like. I've got to tell you, in my experience, you can run rank 6 villains against players at rank 3 to 4. And after that, you have to start getting into some rank X villains. The way that I build rank X villains, by the way, is not different than the way that I build the characters that I do for my character builds. I just take those and perhaps give them more ability points above rank 6 and perhaps legendary actions. And then I'm in a pretty good spot to be able to challenge high-ranking parties. If you have had your villains go down way too fast, I think people would love to commiserate with you and hear about it in the comments below. And of course, in future character builds, I might add in a little section on what I would do if a particular character was meant to be a rank X villain. Anyway, I hope this has been helpful for you. YouTube's made out of buttons. I hope you press some of them, and I'll see you next time. All right, bye.